you are actually like sedated. You are like just asleep. You're not waking up. And when this MRI was done, they said your brain had a lot of water, and we were told the only way was to put a shanty, an operation to put a pipe to drain your water to the stomach to save your brain from being destroyed by the waters. And we were told that one of the top leading neurosurgeons would pass by. And I saw this celebrity, I would call celebrity surgeon, who, who is who.
He operated on a few celebrities in Kenya.
And top politicians.
We can't mention names.
We can't mention names. I saw him with my own eyes. So he came. And when he came, he started telling us what would happen, that would be, he will do it very early in the morning, blah, 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 blah. And then there's one thing he asked me, and I thank God for the question. By this time, my dear husband
had logged off mentally.
Daktari walikuwa akiingia hivi anatoka. Dare to dream. Dare to dream. Dare to dream. Shalom. Welcome to another episode of Dare to Dream with Pauline Mwarabu. Today we are going to bring to you testimonies, our testimony. But before I usher in the guests that I have today, and both of us have incredible testimony, I would like to appreciate you for supporting us this far, subscribing, and actually being there for us. Thank you so much. We would also want to thank JCC Ongatarongai for giving us this space that we are broadcasting this program from. And I also want to thank my team. It's really a great team. Thank you so much. So as I said, today we have a testimony, and I have a special guest in the house, somebody who is very, very, very close to me, the person who made me become a mother. So, na nimemletea sweet. So I want to usher in Karen Kanze. She's our guest today. Karibu sana, Karen.
Thank you so much.
We have this testimony that we have wanted to share for the last 10 years. I don't know, as a mother, as a sister, as a brother, as a father, how would feel if one day your 10-year-old child gets sick, you take them to the hospital, and you're told your daughter or your son is so sick, she has a brain infection, and we cannot guarantee that she'll continue being a normal child. And at that particular time, you have seen that your child is behaving in a way that is likely to suggest that she has brain damage that would make her become a special needs child. I know there's a whole vibe about people who are enabled differently. But now you're talking about a child who has been sick. The denial, the part to embrace, the part to fight. And we want to usher you into our worlds. You get to know what we went through with Karen. So karibu sana, Kanze.
Thank you.
It is 10 years now.
Yeah.
Because you are 10, now you're 20.
Yeah.
So tell us how it began.
All right. So, important note, I was 10, now I'm 20. So I think the earliest memory I have is on my 10th birthday, okay. That is. I remember shortly after my birthday is when I started feeling a bit sick. I started feeling headaches, which turned to migraines. Kikuyu. Kikuyu. Sorry, I had headaches, and at times it became migraines. I couldn't go even with painkillers. I was vomiting. I was really sick. I remember even when I was celebrating my 10th birthday, you were not around. You had taken a trip to Tanzania.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was just I and Dad. And then Dad also is he works, wherever he works, he goes over the weekdays
He was
and
working
comes
in
in the
home,
weekend.
if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So I think the person who I shared my feeling unwell with was our caregiver. At that time it was my cousin. Yeah. And so I shortly after my birthday started feeling unwell, and so I went to the hospital. Once I told Dad, I think Dad called you and you came back to Kenya very fast, and we went to the hospital. The first hospital we went to, they didn't find anything with me. I remember the doctor was asking me if I'm being bullied in school, kama kuna pesa za mtu nimekimbia nazo sitaki kurudi shuleni, because they didn't find any. The tests were, there is absolutely nothing
wrong with
that is
you.
wrong. So I'm trying to explain to them, I have a headache, I have a fever, wakichukua body temperature, it's just normal. So it was really hard to convince them that I was ill, and so we went home because there wasn't any disease that was detected those early stages. So going back home, I remember the symptoms became worse. I had, fevers, I was vomiting, I had headaches, and I really couldn't explain. And then I don't know. I think the time that you took it seriously, also I feel like you as a mom, you bought the story, ukaona msichana labda hataki kurudi shule. So there was a time, what did I say? I said I was in bed. I think
what happened? I remember. Yes, it was hallucination. I remember very well. Like the first few days, I was told you were feeling unwell. And as you said, I didn't take it serious. I actually came after like 3 or 4 days, and I was wondering why this headache is persistent. And everyone, the doctor was like, this could be a psychological problem. At 10 years, they are preteens, they start discovering themselves. Maybe she didn't like that's cool. But there's one question that I could not answer. And the question is, why do you have the fevers? You can fake a sickness, but you cannot fake a fever. You can fake vomiting because you can like put your hands or gargle salt or something, I don't know, and you vomit. But really the thing was, why do you have a fever? And that was my problem. And this fever was not going away because we were giving you painkillers, and the fever, once you take a painkiller, the fever is supposed to break at least for some hours. Yours was not breaking. So this day I had gone to work now, my normal work. I came back, it was about 7 p.m. and you are hallucinating and talking things that we could not understand. Oh, sijui somebody has given you blood.
Nisaidieni na carpet nijifunike.
And you are really shivering and your temperature was very high. I took your temperature and your temperature was actually 40 degrees centigrade. And I knew, hapa, mtoto ako karibu kuconverse. So I called, luckily, Dad was home. I told Dad, you've really unwell. And I think men takes time to process things. Before my husband could process what was happening, I had picked you. I remember that I used to drive a Mercedes. Dad used to drive a CRV. So I picked you, I put you in my car, and I rushed to the nearest big hospital that was there. Then Dad, seeing me running away, and I had carried you, I think he thought of the worst, also followed me with his car. So we were like a chase car. and me, I was really speeding. Yeah. So we took you to the hospital. You remember going to the hospital?
Yeah. So fast forward to when we went to the hospital. Okay, it's a bit long ago, but I can remember some vivid, descriptions of what happened that day. I was very much in pain.
Yeah.
I was very much in pain, and it was unexplainable because from the hospital one, mnaambiwa mtoto hana shida, that I'm okay, and so we go to the other hospital.
But right now we knew that something is wrong because now your neck had become stiff, you're stooping, and you're seriously vomiting.
And I'm complaining.
And there was no question now. At that particular time, there was no question whether, what or what. We knew that now you're sick. Yeah.
So I remember being in a lot of pain. I cried a lot the first day. Yeah. But then I was admitted for a few weeks.
Actually, the admission, when I got there, the doctor told me that the doctor is, I don't know whether it was a doctor or a CEO, clinical officer, I can't remember. But aliniambia, your daughter is so sick and we're suspecting that your daughter has meningitis. We have to admit her. And you know me, I had not been like admitted with a child. It was now really the first admission. And I remember as you were crying, I was really crying also because I was like, now, meningitis. I had never had a good story about meningitis. Now I've been told that you have a suspected case of meningitis. So, and now everyone has to go. And you know, it took some time before wakupime nini. And then they said the real test that they need to do, they cannot do that night. We really have to wait for a specialist in the morning. They do you some tests. And I remember being left alone with you and you're in pain. And I was given I was given a place to sleep because there was no other patient. You were the only patient that night. So I was told to sleep in the next bed. But I couldn't sleep in that next bed. I had to sleep besides you. And you know, you were like puking. Girls, you puked on me. and this time I'm telling God, you know, we are born again. Why are we going through this? And I really didn't know that it was actually the beginning of worse situations ahead. And just to flash back, remember I had a small baby. Fever was still, you know, breastfeeding. In fact, when I was in Tanzania, I was expressing the milk because I didn't want to come back and there's no milk. So I was expressing every day so that, you know, the milk can run. And I have just come. Yeah. He was barely 1.5 years. Yeah. So you slept in the hospital day one.
Yeah, I forgot, but now I've remembered that we were both crying that day. Mama kiniambia, hapana Kanze, nyamaza. No, it's gonna be okay. And me, I'm crying for pain. So after we went to the first hospital, I was admitted for a couple of weeks. A few weeks, that is.
I think 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah. The first hospital.
And
between 7 and 10 days. It was not really 2 weeks, but between 7 and 10 days.
But at the first hospital that I was in, the doctors couldn't find out what was wrong with me. They couldn't pinpoint shida ni gani. They had treated me for the all suspected diseases that they knew, but I wasn't responding.
Actually, they were treating you for meningitis. And if you can remember, we also rode on an ambulance.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, it was moving very fast. From being admitted the first time, we were told that we needed to do a CT scan. And that CT scan was supposed to be done in Westlands.
Yeah.
Is it Westlands? Yeah, in Parklands. In Parklands. There was a hospital in Parklands. So we went with an ambulance. You sleeping there, and we had a nurse. And I was like, I have always seen people moving in ambulance. I have never thought that my daughter, my very own little girl.
Actually, sorry to cut you short. I remember asking you, why is the siren on and why is the ambulance going so fast? I'm like, I'm not in critical condition, lakini. So,
you know, we didn't know actually by that time, we didn't know how critical the situation was. You went for a CT scan and then they removed some fluid. Yeah, and you know, from your back, from your spinal cord. And, you know, we are being told, you know, this one, you have to, they could not sedate you. So, you know, you're like a small child. The ideal thing would be to sedate you, because if you move an inch and that needle just, you know, touches a vital neuro whatever, you're done. You could be paralyzed. You could, you know,
I
all
remember
those
the
things.
doctor prepping me, telling me it's one of the most painful needles that you could get. And so I was like, I'm too young for this. But yes, I do.
You did it. Actually, it's like you did feel pain. Or maybe you were in a lot of pain. That this one was no longer pain to you. And you did very well. So we went back with the results. And again, the CSF, they removed from you. And the CT scan did not show anything. So they said we need to go back for an MRI. My friend, Guy, it was my first time seeing MRI machine. Me, I'll never forget. I remember I used to describe it as the siren for the ambulance, for the fire station, fire vehicle, for a bell ringing, for a phone ringing, for a posho milk siagi, all put together. I don't know how the MRI machines of today they are, but those ones, they had beeps, they had sijui what, and I remember I was like, those days I still used to have anxiety disorder, and when I was told I'm supposed to stay inside with you, and you put, you are so tiny, you put on that car, I don't know whether to call it a conveyor or whatever, and then it takes you inside. And that thing it was big. From that time, I've never seen an MRI machine.
That was your first and last.
And that is the day that I really broke down. Because to me, when I saw you go through that machine, I felt like you had died. And, I have to tell you, be brave, nini, be brave, nini vumilia. And then it was taking a lot of time. You remember the MRI?
Yeah,
the first
but
one.
You weren't, okay, I don't know if I am misremembering. You weren't allowed in the room.
The CT scan.
The
first one was the CT scan.
Okay.
I stayed out. There's a car room where, and with a glass window where we could chungulia.
Yeah.
Because I was told, because of the rays, what are they called?
Rays.
Yeah, the X-rays or the gamma, I don't know what they are. But the second one, the MRI, I think because it's this huge and you are a child and you can panic and unaingia kwa tube huko ndani, I think that one I was told to stay, but niliwekewa vitu kwa masikio because of the noise. Yeah. You remember that? At that time your memory had started.
No, I can't remember getting into the MRI.
Okay.
Yeah.
And after that, I think, Dad was like, she's not improving. Tumtoe, because now it's 10 days, same symptoms. You've been treated for meningitis. Now it is worse and you're not getting well. So we said, we'll go to pray for you. Like, we really had faith. We said, give us our daughter. We go home and pray. And I remember when we got home and we started praying. But the next day, you vomiting now too much. The vomiting was too much, and your eyes had started twisting. I don't know what to call it. Makengezas. Yeah, and then I said, apana, hii kitu sijui, and Dad had gone back to work. So I decided I'm not going to call him, but I'm going to ask for a second opinion. So we went to the first hospital, the clinic that we had gone. Okay. I found a very good doctor. I can't even mention her. I think she was Dr. Bashir, a Muslim lady. And I had gone with everything we had been given from Hospital 2. And Hospital 2 had the CSF analysis they had done. They had said there's no protein. I think they were looking for protein or something. So they had said everything is normal. But when this lady looked at those results, she said something is wrong with these results. This protein is actually very high, and that shows that there's an effective, there's an active infection in your brain. Then she called the lab assistant. She asked her to confirm. And the lady said, this one should be admitted. She should not be walking like this. This time, tunakushikilia kutembea. You get?
Yeah.
And then she said, you need an ambulance and you need to go to their main hospital, which is one of the best hospitals in Kenya. So they said, you need to go to this hospital. And she called the hospital and she said, you know what? These people are coming. The child has this condition. We need a neurologist, pediatrician. Simu zikapigwa. Mimi nikaambiwa nipewe ambulance. I said, no, let me go home. And then I'm going to pick a few things, and then we can go to the hospital. So I went home. When I went home, we didn't go to the hospital. Nilikuwa na imani wewe kutoka hapa mpaka Mombasa. So you know what? We slept. But the next morning, you had difficulties waking up. And I said, I need to go to hospital. So nikakutayarisha, nikitaka kutoka, nikagongesha gari. used to have one car. And I knew that my stress levels were very high. I called someone. There's a young man called Onyango. I called Onyango. I told Onyango and Ayub. You remember Ayub?
Yeah.
We need to go to the hospital. So we went to this big hospital. And when we went to this big hospital, now you are having hallucinations, you are laughing too much, you are hyperactive. And the doctor was like, huyu Kanze anakuanga hivi. Although I think
it became a personality.
a disorder became a personality. Do you remember us going to now that was the third hospital?
Yeah. Okay.
What do you remember?
I don't think I remember.
So they checked on you. And then they said what? They have to do all the test on their own. Zenye tulikuwa tumefanya hospital too. They said hawazichukui. This time, ujue, we are working on an insurance, a medical cover. We have consumed a good amount of money from hospital 1, hospital 2. Now we're in hospital 3. Na mi niko tu. So we were admitted. And the doctor checked on you. And she said, you know, that dog, I love that doctor, but I think she scared me. So she said, you know, the behavior she's exhibiting, now we don't know whether it's her personality or it is the brain damage. But if I look at her eyes, you know, your mouth had actually drooled like this one side. He said, you see, this is a paralysis. Then wakakugonga na tuchuma huku spinning. And then they said one side of your side, I can't remember whether it's left or right, it's paralyzed. But actually, me, I had not noticed. It's only that you're walking with a stoop and leaning towards one side. And they said, this is critical. So they said, this one looks like meningitis, just what we had been told. Just looks like meningitis. And those heavy dosages of antibiotics.
1001
I can't remember even what they are called. Alafu, wanajaribu ku bring your temperature down. Haifanyi. I hated the temperature gun. Because hata nurse, she has not even reached where you are. It's beeping. You know that beep to say intervene, it's critical. And you could be given this paracetamol IV combined with so many other medication. And at one point you're doing like 10 medication in a day and you're not improving. So we went for the MRI. Again, I got in with you with the MRI. And I thank God for that second MRI. Because the second MRI, Lily, because now I was telling God, whichever, whether you're going to use doctors, machines, whatever, please do something so that they understand. And I think at that particular time, you are also worried as a child. Because I remember one day you asked me, Mommy, am I going to die? And I really cried. I don't know, you felt like you were dying.
Yeah, I had never, I think that was my first time being admitted in a hospital. I had never had your chance. Now, I think from 10 years going downwards, I think the major thing I've ever had, hata sasa nikanishikwa na malaria. So it was something so big, so major. And I used to believe being admitted in a hospital, like you need to be really critical.
But you are very critical, only that you're a child and you didn't know the extent
and
of...
I really stayed in the hospital for quite some time, you know, after a few weeks you spent in hospital too. And now going back to another hospital, I was feeling like this is the end of the road.
So that day, you asked me whether you're going to die. And I was so shaken, so I carried you. There was a HDU, inaitangwa HDU, high dependence unit for the kids, because we were in kids unit. And there were those kids with pipes, with water, and you, hauko umewekewa pipes. So I went there and I showed you those kids. I told you, you're not critical. That much. If you get to this level, then we will discuss about death. But at this particular time, we will not. And then we went for the EGG for your brain. And you know, all the photos I took for you, I don't have a single photo of you in the hospital. I think on the one that Dad posted, he brought you flowers. On the one on his Facebook. Maybe we are going to retrieve that and maybe just post it. But I remember all the photos. I had a tablet like this. I took all the photos and I had a phone. The tablet was
Was
stolen.
stolen.
It was actually an iPad. A whole iPad was stolen in the hospital.
And those times, like it was 2000 and something, like owning an iPad was something.
Of course,
big.
not many people had iPad.
Yeah.
And the rest, I transferred them as I was giving away the phone, but they just disappeared. I think God wanted us to really
Cut
just,
that part off.
have it behind us, because it was really a trying time. So by now, stories zimefika. We have not talked with our relatives. We have not told them that the child is sick. Na wameanza huyo mtoto, hey, hawaongei, wanasema mtoto ni mgonjwa, kukiharibika wasiongee. But I love grandma and grandfather. They were really praying and mobilizing people to grandma and grandpa from Chonyi. They were praying and mobilizing groups to pray for you. And after the EGG was out, it showed that your brain was really compromised. In fact, the doctors wondered how you were actually conversing and making, meaningful conversations, because the brain was really, to a large extent, had been compromised. And it is at that moment that the next day, you woke up and you were worse. You started losing some functions. One of the things, you had difficulties waking up. And the doctor, not the main doctor, the team, there were other doctors.
Yes,
so there was this, I think it was an Arab, not even doctors, there was an Arab or an Indian, can't remember. There's this doctor who came and told me, Mama, your child is very sick, and we are going to manage her with, I think, steroids, because if her brain collapses now, she's going to get into a coma. And you refuse to wake up absolutely, mpaka walikuwa na kudunga tu sindano to just find out whether you are okay. And I remember negotiating with God, telling God, remember, I've told my daughter that if she gets into HDU, then that is where we can talk about death. And I can see the road to get there. It's clear now, because I can see you are slowly getting into that coma that I have been told that you can get into that coma. And the main doctor came that day and said that from the EGG, you had these seizures. They're called seizures. Seizures. Kind of conversions, mini conversions. Because we could see there's something you were doing with your teeth. You'd just crunch your teeth. And as we thought, it's like a habit. Tena umeanza, maybe uchungu ni mingi. Then I was told you are getting into those conversions. And I was like, Jehovah God, hapa. Hey, those days akukuwa na hiyo nini vocabulary ya kitawaramba. I would have said hapa tutarambwa. You remember losing the function on walking?
Yeah, I remember once used to be the one who was staying with me in the hospital, but he also had other children. There was my 2 younger brothers. So there's some time that you could exchange with some few cousins of my relatives. And I had my cousin over for the night. And I wasn't, she just came over for that night. So I didn't want to disturb her. Sikuwa nataka kumwamsha and tell her, Mom used to hold my hand as I go to the washroom. Can you do the same thing? So I thought I could wake up and go to the washroom, because from where my ward was, to the washroom was like 15 steps, 10 steps, very few steps. So I don't think I fully comprehended that I have lost my ability to walk at the time. So I remember getting out of bed. I don't know how I managed like around 2 steps, and then after that I just collapsed and I started crying, and the nurses came rushing in. But then that's when it was clear that I couldn't even walk.
Yeah. I actually came the following morning and realized that you could not walk. Your cousin told me about it, and we tried, and from that time I had to hold you to walk. And from that time I started seeing one function after another going away. And I remember that day when you fell, I discussed with the main doctor. That time now we were having team of doctors. It stopped being a few doctors.
Yeah.
Both the students who are, doing this tropical infectious diseases, and people would come and have meetings and talk. And sometimes they will forget that I'm there as a mother. They talk stuff.
Yeah.
It's there. I heard them talking about the brain damage. They talked about basal nerves or something like that, or neurons. I can't remember. Yeah. And they said that they are praying hard that it will not be affected. That time you had complete squints. Your eyes were moving to different directions, and you still had headaches, and the temperatures were still going on. There is nothing, actually, you're just moving to the worst. Then that day, we were sent for another MRI, and I don't think that you can remember that, because you are actually like sedated. You are like just asleep. You're not waking up. And when this MRI was done, they said your brain had a lot of water, and we were told the only way was to put a shanty, an operation to put a pipe to drain your water to the stomach to save your brain from being destroyed by the waters. And we were told that one of the top leading neurosurgeons would pass by. And I saw this celebrity, I would call celebrity surgeon, who is who.
He operated on a few celebrities in Kenya.
And top politicians.
We can't mention names.
We can't mention names. I saw him with my own eyes. So he came. And when he came, he started telling us what would happen, that would be, he will do it very early in the morning, blah, 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 blah. And then there's one thing he asked me, and I thank God for the question. By this time, my dear husband
had logged off mentally.
Daktari alikuwa akiingia hivi anatoka. He usually say the reason is because he didn't want his faith to be compromised. That is his perspective. But my perspective, man, you have left me alone with this thing. Doctors walk in, the guy walks out. So now I'm hurting because I feel like he's not with me. But I think for sure he was building his faith elsewhere. And now we are being told about your operation. So I had to call him because now this is major. So he came, he listened. Kwanza huyo daktari alinitishia. Alikuja akasema, my name is Dr. So and so. Mimi ni mtaalam wa ubongo na uti wa mgongo. Nikasema kuisha. Haya. So after that akaniuliza, Mama, do you believe in God? Because now I was very shaken. I said, yes, I believe in God. I said, pray for your daughter. She will come out of it. Don't worry. Then I asked him, will this pipe be removed? I said, no. When we put it, putting it is risky. Removing it is riskier, if there is such a word. So we put it is for life. But he asked me, do I pray? Then he took his torch, shone on your eyes, looked at how your eyes were behaving, took the MRI films, looked at them, and then he said, you know what? Yes, this brain has a lot of retention, but I can still see the ridges of the brain. So this is not very bad. If you pray for her. I'm going to prescribe some medication, and then after 2 days, I'll come and check. If the brain will still be retaining a lot of water, alafu kuna vitu zingine huko, okay, I just know how they look like. Ananiambia hii kitu inafaa kuwa as narrow as a needle. Hiyo kakitu, whatever. The doctors understand. But now, I threw those films when wakati tulikuwa tunahama, ningewaonyesha. So, akasema, this one it's big, imepanuka, lakini tu tuombe Mungu. So we started praying. I started telling God, you need to do something. And then that day when you are given those dawas, the next day your Sunday school pastor came. You remember?
Yeah.
Vaguely.
I hope I can mention he was.
Yeah, you can.
He was a hero. I still love him till date.
Yeah.
He was called Pastor Masharia from KG East Assemblies in Buruburu. Pastor Masharia was my Sunday school teacher. And so I think he called you when he noticed that several Sundays I haven't come. So he got to know of my situation being ill. So Pastor Masharia came to the ward, and he looked at me and he smiled and he told me, "Hi Kanze, how are you?" I'm saying I'm good. He asked me, "What do you want to, like what do you want to be in future?" At that time, supposedly, I'm supposed to be like in my deathbed, heading towards not being there, and he just asked me, "What do you want to be in future?" And I was there and I said, "I want to be an engineer."
Wow.
And I remember my mom crying and she was like, "I'm sure you are wondering, Sasa, who you?" My daughter is barely making it past life. Yeah.
Every day.
And then he, when in Sunday school, we used to have, our Sunday school was really lit. It was really fun.
Yeah.
So Pastor Masharia made the Sunday school so fun. So it was an honor for you to speak to other Sunday school members. So he told me, "You see, when you get out of the hospital, I'm going to give you a chance to talk to your friends and tell them about your experience in the hospital." And I became so happy. I was like, it filled me with so much hope. I was like, I can't wait to get okay and get out of the hospital so that I can go and, witness to my friends. And he told me to write a testimony.
But then I still have the testimony. That one, somehow I salvaged the testimony.
Yeah, and he told me to write a
I
testimony.
think it's on my Gmail, yeah.
Yeah, a testimony that after I am healed, I will go to the Sunday school and I will tell, and that was a really big leap of faith.
Yeah.
Wherever Pastor Masharia is right now, I really thank you so much. Shout out to you. So I wrote the testimony on your laptop.
Yeah.
I don't know whose laptop it was. One of my parents' laptop. I wrote the testimony.
It was mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, it was on the tablet. By that time, the tablet had not been stolen. And this tablet I had been given by someone from the US, so it didn't have a SIM card, but it used to connect to Wi-Fi. Luckily, in this hospital, there was Wi-Fi. So I was able to email that to my Gmail. And I remember after that, I remember you now, once you got healed, working on it, because the first time you wrote it, it had so many other issues, because you were sick.
Errors,
You were really sick, but after you came out of the hospital, you were able to polish it on the laptop. I think that is now what you're remembering on the laptop. And after 2 days, the neurosurgeon came and ruled out surgery, and it was really, really, really a major victory to us.
win.
But even at this particular time, we didn't know what is wrong with you. The medication that you were taking had not even started working on you. And I remembered asking God, up to when will this thing happen? And one time, Ayub came to help me sleep over. I went home to see the other kids. And that morning, I was so confused. I actually put on maji ya wiper ya gari, nikaweka kwa place where you're supposed to put oil. And I knew that I'm really in bad shape. And I left the car. I came back to hospital. When I came back to hospital, I found that the credit controller was looking for me. We had exhausted the cover, and the bill was huge. It was about 700,000. And the cover was about, had exceeded, because your cover was about 500,000, and you had already consumed 200,000 from the other. And this now, on the new hospital, we had gone up to 700,000. And she was like, "Sasa mimi nimekuja hapa, ujue venye mtalipa hii bill." I remember I cried because we didn't have money. I told her, I don't care exactly how we are going to pay this bill, but I'm not, because it was like, "Why don't you shift your daughter to a cheaper hospital?" I told her, you are a finance guy. A lady, she was a lady. I asked her, "Are you not a mother?" Number one. Number two, you are a finance person. You're not a doctor. So when you're telling me to shift her to a cheaper hospital, I think maybe it was in good faith, but I was so stressed up and depressed to see it from that side. I told her, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait for my doctor and discuss. And true to my word, when the doctor came, I discussed with the doctor, and they said, "We are sorry, but we don't even advise you to move your child, because there's something that we have thought. We've treated her for all this meningitis and nothing that is happening. So what you are going to do now, we are going to treat her through elimination method." we have eliminated bacterial meningitis because we've been putting her on this and hakuna kitu anafanyika. Kaniambia there's another meningitis viral. There's no medication for virus wear themselves out on their own. However, we have been giving her a booster to help the body fight the virus. So if it was viral, it would have cleared by now. Then we have something called amoeba. It's not in Africa. It's found mainly in America and other countries. That one, it is actually amoeba, brain-eating amoeba. He said this we can't even do 48 hours. So we rule out that because it is now almost 1.5 months since you started complaining about your headache, and it has not gone. Then he said there is one that is rare. I think, I can't remember, she said it's one case in 100,000 or a million, I don't know. Something called TB meningitis. And she told me for the culture to germinate, the bacteria that causes that to germinate, it will take 21 days. And we do not have 21 days. 21 days, your daughter cannot be alive. Okay, hakuniambia your daughter cannot be alive, but she told me, I don't think we have 21 days. So I understood from her sentence, you know, the way doctors are trained not to cause alarm. But she told me, I don't think we have 21 days. So they asked, could we experiment medication for TB? And I said, oh yes, we need to. By this time, you had now lost your function number 2, vision. You are seeing in double. I remember asking you, Mom, is it this one or that one? So you were seeing in double vision. You had double vision. And then you had lost your ability to detect bowel movement. So you couldn't like say, nataka kwenda kususu, nataka kwenda kupupu. So now, we didn't have diapers. We should have put you on a diaper. And you can imagine now a 10-year-old back to diapers. So on top of you cannot walk. And at this point, I don't even think that you remember anything because your memory just went shh. Apart from knowing mom, dad, cousin, nini. But I'm sure because I don't know. Do you remember going for physiotherapy in the hospital?
No, I don't think
so. So they started experimenting. And that time I remember when my friends realized that I had an issue with finances, they started changaing for me. They changaed some good amount of money they brought to me. I was supposed to pay the hospital. And that is the time your dad said, this is not a sickness. It's spiritual battle. We got to fight with it spiritually. And he took that money and made it a seed. We are being chased from the hospital. He didn't even tell me. He went, took it, bought instruments. The guy had even time to go to town, bought instruments for a pastor and planted. And by the way, after he gave out that seed, things started happening because for the first time, your temperature was managed. You didn't have that high temperature. Temperature came low. That was like day 4 or 5 of being put on TB medication, those 6 months. And, you know, I had to write those medication in a book when you're being discharged because in ya sahi. And then, of course, now you are not walking. So we were told that you need to do, and you are still paralyzed on one side, we need to do physiotherapy. And I remember ukipelekwa na wheelchair, ukiambiwa ushikilie ile miti 2, ukianguka hapo, ukishikiliwa, ukifungwa sijui nini, ukitembezwa kwa hizo chuma, day 1, day 2, day 3. And then day 4, your temperature had completely gone down. And they said, now you can be discharged. And remember, we flashback before that, when now it was evident that we were being chased from the hospital because we cannot pay the bill, we went to our insurance. Tukapata a very good lady. I told her about my case, nini. Akaanza kunipigia kelele pia. Kwa nini mlienda hospitali expensive? Kwani hamjui limiti yenu? HR, that time is only dad who had insurance. I was working for the main GOK. We didn't have, apart from NHIF. And then I just broke down and cried. And I asked her, are you not a mother? Again, then I had been given a letter by my doctor. So she looked at the letter, she saw the case, and she was like, oh my God. I think there's another case they had handled. Oh my God. She made several phones. She told me, oh, sijui, there's a board meeting. Thank God. We usually, the hospital together with the insurance, they belong to the same company.
Oh.
So they said they usually have something like give back to the community, and they usually help people who are unable to
pay.
and then they made a call to find out whether your medication, what were the chances of your survival. They were told with proper medication she's going to survive. However, we cannot be assured that she'll be a normal child, the child she was, but she will survive. And then they said something about HIV, I can't remember, that if you are HIV positive, then it will compromise the treatment. So we were given a letter approving that you be treated by the hospital, by this community arm of the hospital, until you recover fully 100%, subject to having done the HIV test. So we went, did the test. Of course, it was negative, and we were told not to worry. We saw God, basically, and that's where one of the testimonies, I saw God, because now the Nini was approaching 1 million, the hospital bill, and they have said that now they are going to treat you until you're okay. Then the second miracle I saw is when the doctor said they are going to experiment with this TB medication, and then you started responding to medication. But there's a twist about that, because after the 21 days, long after you were discharged, we went to check the results for the TB. Because, it was taking 21 days. And within those 21 days we were waiting, the medication you were given, the one that we were experimenting, worked on you. And even after giving the seed, you really improved. And you had already been discharged. So I went back to pick the results after 21 days. And I was told it did not come positive. The TB was not positive. So I am not very sure exactly what, I can't tell what it was. But I remember telling God, I don't care the name of this disease. You got this one, you have to handle for us. And after that, we saw God doing so many things, because after you discharged, we needed to do hiyo inaitwa nini, physiotherapy, your OT. We were supposed to do occupational therapy, physiotherapy, all that, because now you're not walking, you're not talking, you only respond. You cannot start a conversation. That means you cannot say if you want something, you cannot say ulikuwa unakaa tu mtu kamezuba. And then because of the medication ulikuwa umepewa ya kufanya usikuwe na conversion, I think ni hizi drugs, epilim, I don't know, but you are reacting, you had piled a lot of weight. You just became but you used to be thin. Hiyo lazima picha nitaweka. Ulikuanga hata si 1 GB, quarter GB.
Wow.
And then you just blossomed. You have no clothes. Trouble number 2. You cannot walk. We are carrying you. Another trouble. And I remember when you were being discharged, we met with someone we knew. She was a doctor, but they used to stay in our own estate. So the wife had called him and told him he was a gynecologist, but working in the same hospital. The wife was a physiotherapist. Akampigia akamwambia, oh, Kanze na mamake wamekuwa hiyo hospitali, wamelazwa for so long. So wakati tulikuwa tu discharged hivyo, tukakutana na yeye. Akaniuliza, mama Kanze, unapeleka mtoto mgonjwa wapi? Because indeed you could not walk, nyanya. Shosho alikuwa amekushikilia. And for me, I'm like, I am walking out of this hospital with a kid who is alive. Yeah. And we went home. I don't even know whether you can still remember being home, but I remember from the KAG, because you used to go to KAG, East Assembly yourself. I remember Bishop's wife coming to see you. And then
I refused to go and see.
And we couldn't realize that it was part of the brain damage. So we thought it was umekata. And then you had a thing for an appetite. Ulikuwa unakula mpaka una puke. Like
I
the place, you see everything is controlled, I think, by the pituitary gland, and
Okay.
it had been compromised. So that's why you could not say when you want to go to the bathroom. That's why you could not talk to us. That's why you could not say that you are you lost the ability to feel full. You know the way you eat, unasikia umeshiba,
Umeshiba.
unaacha. You lost that ability, so you'd eat and puke.
And eat again.
And then eat. So we started closing the fridge. Thank God our fridge had a key. Kama ingekuwa ni leo, yana venye Kaila na terrorize na fridge. So we lock the fridge so that you don't ask for food. But basically, I think from at that particular time, I think your memory, because I don't think you remember getting out of the hospital.
No.
So you came home, alafu kila mtu anatuuliza alipata stroke, neighbors. Alipata stroke mtoto, because you're like paralyzed. Alifanyika nini? Hatuna la kusema. And it was a long walk to your recovery. And I thank God because people were there to stand with you. You had some friends. I don't know whether you remember.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, and they would come just to support you hand by hand to make you walk. And this physiotherapist came to my house. Akaniambia, you know what, Mama Kanze, don't go to big hospitals for physio. I'll do it for free. Alikuwa anakuja na mashina na kufanyia, but ulikuwa unalia. Unalia. I'm like, si uchungu. Unafanyiwa hiyo, unakandwa, sijui unafanywa nini. To machines, tunaguruma huku na kule, just to enable you. And I remember we were really praying for you to be able to recover. But it was long. Whatever we were told, I remember one incident. I had taken you for clinic to see this doctor because we had a clinic for long. And I took you to clinic, and there was a cafeteria, and you are feeling so hungry, and we are waiting to pay and get food.
Yeah.
You just dived your hand, and you know they didn't know like you have a problem, a disorder, a brain disorder.
Yeah.
And I was almost, aliniangalia kwa vibaya huyo mwanaume, sijui akaniambia sijui nini, mtoto wako hana adabu nini. That is one case that I felt so sad about, and I knew my child will never be the same again. And then there's one time you started a fire in the house.
Well, technically, it wasn't a fire. I just lit a few candles. Yeah.
You can't remember.
No,
it was a fire. You had put newspapers. Nikasema niliambia mtoto wangu hata haikuwa normal. Huyu amechizi, ameisha. Period. The brain is gone. That day, I felt like I'm just gonna give up on this child. Like, sawa, ni mtoto wetu. I had told God, when you are very sick and almost getting into a coma, I told God, I don't care, but I just want my baby alive. Whether he has a brain damage, whether he's a special needs kid, I don't care. I just want my child alive. But this day, I told God, I care now. Because kwanza ulikuwa umetoroka mara mbili, sijui ukienda wapi, ukashikwa na huko mesora, ukaletwa nyumbani. Kama umepotea. And you'd get to a to a supermarket, just pick something, you have no money to pay, they think you are stealing, but kichwa yako ilisha kutuma huko. Sijui hizo unaweza kumbuka. You can't, because basically it was because of the brain damage. But by and large, after like 3-4 months, you started walking, and because you lost almost 2 terms of school. Yeah. And we took you to school. And when we took you to school, Kanze mwenye tulitoa shule ni tofauti na Kanze mwenye tunarudisha shule. Kanze tunarudisha shule ni mchokozi, is a bully, cannot sit down, she's hyperactive, she's beating kids.
Really?
Yes.
No, I swear nilikuwa ninaekelewa.
Huko unawekelewa because
Really?
Because we actually changed you school. Because we felt this school you were in
Lucina.
Yeah. So we changed you, we took you to Wanja and Kim. And when we took you to Wanja and Kim, kuna kitu ulifanya, a rude thing you did. We were called to school as parents. And my husband was like, Mama, this time round, we need to tell them the truth. Because wanafikiria huyu mtoto ni mtukutu, ni mtu nini. So we sat down with the headmaster. May God rest his peace in eternal life. He was really a good guy. And we sat, and there was a teacher fulani, sikumbuki jina yake, sijui ni Njoroge ama ni nani.
Mr. Njoroge.
Mr. Njoroge. We sat together. We told them what was wrong with you. And they said now they understand you. And they will shape you up. Because you only needed, you know, ulikuwa uko na outbursts. Hizo meltdown actually. The meltdown were bad. Yeah. Even when we went for holiday to do your Thanksgiving party. Because we had told God, ukishapona tutaenda kutoa shukurani nyumbani coast. I remember your cousins walikuja wakaniuliza akina Doka na nini, Karen ako na shida gani? Ana shida, amekasirika, ana fume, anafanya. It was again, now you had developed. It's like the way autistic kids behave. They have those meltdown. Unajiachilia, unakasirika. It is your way or highway, you know. And we started praying seriously that God may enable you to, you know, to heal you. So fast forward, how have been your journey after that?
It's been quite some time. It's been 10 years. Yeah. I think when I refused to repeat, I refused to repeat.
Yeah.
Little did I know, probably I'll repeat later on in life. But at that moment, I really do want to accept the fact that time had, you know, I had wasted, because I wasn't in school for around 2 months. That was
2 terms.
Oh, 2 terms, sorry, 2 terms. That was in class 5. I'm not sure how true it is. They say class 5 for the 844 system, that class 5 is the backbone of, you know, the whole primary, because most things are taught there. But I refused to repeat. So I went to class 6. Before then, I used to be, okay, I'm not saying I still am. I was a very bright girl. I was number 1, number 2, number 3, you know. And then when I came back to school, I was the last one. And so
You cried.
Yeah. I really cried because I was like, hey, I was so far, you know, for being used to top the class, and now I am the last one in the class. It really didn't sit right with me. And it took me some time to completely, you know, recover the time lost. But I think God has been faithful, because once I did my KCPE, I hit a target that nobody could, like the people who saw me immediately after I got out of the hospital, you couldn't think that I could get such within such a short span of time, because it was class 6, class 7, and class 8. You know, I thank God because I did recover everything. And that was in the part of academia.
Yeah.
In the part of, you know, relations, after I got out of the hospital, I had some, as you said, I had some really good friends who are with me all through, and I really would like to thank them. I think without those, because they used to visit me, they used to come and eat the snacks at our place. There's a time my whole class decided to take an evening off and come and see Kanze. I was really overwhelmed by their, you know, their love and their unity. Yeah.
So were you able to recover in terms of academics, in terms of your functions?
Yeah, I was able to recover in terms of my functions. In terms of the being hyperactive, I think you ikakuwa sasa ni personality. If you meet me right now, honestly, I am hyper. I'm all over the place. And I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing that I got from
the sickness.
Yeah. What else? I feel like I've recovered everything that I had lost in that time. I even remember telling Pastor Masharia, when he asked me, what would you want to be in future? I said, I want to be an engineer. And I thank God because God has placed me in that path, in that line. And I know that he's faithful enough to bring it to completion. Yes.
For sure, God has been faithful. The things that we thought that you could not do, now you can drive. You stay on your own. You're doing a hard, I would say, a tough career. And you're as tough as that. Probably maybe to a young girl who has gone through sicknesses, who maybe she's feeling, or even a young boy, feeling that everything is lost. I don't know which camera. Yeah, look at that camera and speak to this young person who have lost hope.
Well, sorry. I feel like I have so many advices for your sector. The first one is, I think, for bullying. But then, okay, after I got healed, as mom said, I was put on steroids. So I really plumped up sana. I was really huge, and I used to be small. So I used to get a few of my friends who didn't understand what I went through. They were bullying me, saying, umenona sana, but nobody knows your story. Nobody knows what you've been through. It is only maybe you and your God and your family. And therefore, even if you're going through so much backlash from your friends, so much backlash from people who are close to you, I think one thing to note is that, God has passed you from one situation that was bound to kill you or bound to put you down and taken you to another situation. And that, the beauty is within.
Sure.
For the families who are going through, one of their family members who is ill, or who they don't know how to go about it, I think tough times never last. And one thing about God is that God is a faithful God. He says that none of his words that he utters from his mouth shall touch the ground. They shall not come back to him void. And so once you pray to God, once you speak about healing on your family members, just as my family did, I'm sure God is faithful enough to answer. Yeah. And I think God passes us through some situations to teach us some things, to not just to teach us some things, but also for his glory. Because anytime we talk about this testimony, we give all glory to God. People say how, oh my God, God is so great. He did this and this and this. Sometimes God passes us through some difficult situations, also that people might testify of his good deeds. So don't be discouraged. Don't be, let down, because God is faithful till the end. Yeah.
Wow, what an advice. I can't, when I flash back 10 years ago, I can't imagine that the words that you've spoken right now are coming out from somebody that we were almost giving up on. But one thing was clear: we didn't give up on God. And I want to encourage especially parents also who are going through difficult situations. Probably they have special needs kids. Probably they are bullied out there, because bullying is a whole issue, and we can actually sit down and really talk about bullying, because there are many times that I have had to go and comfort my daughter, sobbing uncontrollable, because somebody called her ugly, or somebody said you're fat, and I remember we had to transfer
stupid. Yeah.
and we had to transfer her from a national school, because the kind of vibes she was getting from some of those kids were not positive. And as she said, there's something I usually keep on saying, that show grace to everyone you meet, because you don't know what season of their life God is taking them through. So to us, that weight reminds us the grace of God, because her brain was saved by the steroids, or the medication. Otherwise, we would not be talking about an engineering student today. So to her weight reminds her of God's faithfulness, basically. And to women who are going through issues,
with their children, there's a God in heaven. Never ever give up. Go to God in prayer. My cup today, I don't know. Yes, my cup today, it's written, it's from the book of Psalms 46 and verse 5, that God is within her. She will not fail. And that is a parting shot I want to leave you with, that God is in you and he will not fail you. Now, this is a series on testimonies, and should you want to share your testimony with us so that we can broadcast it here at Dare to Dream with Pauline Mwarabu, we are going to leave our email address there. You can send us an email and let us know that you want to share your testimony. You never know, your testimony is going to transform somebody's life, it's going to inspire someone, it's going to make someone understand that they are loved. Just, you never know, at their weakest point, your testimony can be the hope they are waiting upon. And for everyone else that is about to give up, even those ones who are feeling like they have come to the end of life and they may even feel like they want to commit suicide, I want to assure you there is hope. If I can sit here with my daughter and we speak about the faithfulness of God in such a manner, there is hope in God. God bless you so much. Please, as you leave, do not forget to subscribe. And if this story blessed you, please share it with someone else. Tumesema ya kwamba tunafikia 1,000 subscribers. That is our next handle. And we are almost there. We are about 636 hatuko mbali. So help us reach that milestone. From me and from my daughter, Kanze, God bless you. We meet next time. Thank you.
Dare to dream.